This is Jenna Ackley here on Suffolk Sound. Thanks so much for tuning in this Tuesday lunchtime, and I hope you've got great plans for this afternoon and evening to send off 2024 in style. Now, I am joined in the studio with William Gilroy. William is a Lowestoft boy who is a charity founder and community activist who's been attracting quite a lot of national attention lately with his barge restoration project in Lowestoft. And he joins me today to share his incredible journey from foster care and prison to career success and community altruism.
Yes, good, and thanks for having me as well.
Not at all. Thank you very much for coming on. So I'd like to start at the beginning, if we can, William, and whether you're happy to tell me a little bit about your early life and the struggles you faced.
Yeah, so basically, I suppose from a starting point, I was put into foster care at a very young age, around about 4 years old. I went through lots of children's homes, foster families, experienced some pretty tough times. I underwent abuse, mentally, physically. I went to Oakwood School, which was a school that sadly didn't treat children very well.
Was that in Lowestoft?
No, that was in Stowmarket, actually. Okay. I used to travel from the children's home to Stowmarket, and I know there's some later court cases that went on from there, and I won't go into too much detail, but from an early age, I was unfortunately not treated very well, and I think as a result to that, I think in life that obviously led me on very different paths to probably what most people would have taken at my age.
Okay, and do you mind me asking the circumstances of why you were in foster care?
Yeah, so there's a few reasons. I mean, my biological mother probably wasn't the best. She went on to be a murderer. My dad was in and out of trouble with the law all the time, and I think they just couldn't look after me in the way, I guess, that parents should look after children. So as a result, I obviously went into care, but, I was I'd obviously gone through lots of traumatic events, even growing up. We were passed from pillar to post and neglected, which was one of the reasons I was taken into care.
Did you realise at the time when you were a child that you were being treated differently to other kids? Like, did you realise the trauma you were going through when you were a kid?
I think only when I started going to school, when I started seeing other children and how their lives were, and I would, kind of wish that was kind of how my life was. And unfortunately, because of the other children knowing my circumstances, obviously they treated me very differently, and sadly, not for the better. And so there was a lot of bullying, and I think that's where it led me to become, I suppose, in my younger years, violent.
You lived up to everyone's expectations of you.
Yeah, exactly that, yeah. And also just because I had a point to prove, I'd no big brother, no family members who were going to protect me. I had to look after myself. And so I think that's where my criminal career probably first started. I was fighting, I wasn't scared to fight anyone. I had nothing to lose, and there was dishonesty, no one gave me anything. I suppose in hindsight, when I look back, I took what I needed, which I appreciate is terrible, but looking back,
all you knew, yeah,
that's all I knew, and no one there was there.
Was there anyone in those younger years that really did have your back, like any foster families or sort of foster siblings, or anything that you remember actually seeing some real kindness from?
Yeah, there's definitely two people that I can think of straight away. There was a lady called Anne Dickey. She was in the children's home, and she was my key worker. It was a children's home I was at for a very long time, and she used to tell a story. She was actually a prison officer, and she used to look after Myra Hindley.
Wow.
So yeah, and I remember her talking to us, and we were really interested because she worked in a prison. The irony of that now when I look back, but she took me on. She was a Scottish lady. She was just great. She understood me, and she treated me like a person rather than a job. And I think she was the first person. And then later on, I was finally fostered. I say fostered, more adopted by my parents, who are now my parents, Anne and Alan Roll, and they are my parents still today. So,
what age were you when you were adopted by them?
I was 12.
Okay.
So yeah, straight from a children's home, and I was an absolute handful.
But you're still close to them now, so they stuck by you and
They
stuck
did.
by them.
They did, and I've stuck by them. Actually, my dad, since I've been backwards and forwards to hospital, he's got dementia or early signs of dementia, and he's having disability, walking issues and things like that. So I've spent a great deal of time over Christmas with him in hospital, and with my mum, because obviously it's the first time she's sort of been alone, really. And they've normally fostered about 35 children in their career,
Wow.
so they've had a fair few people come through the door, and I think it's been a very lonely Christmas for Anne, who I call my mum, and so I'm there for them now, like they were there for me when I was younger.
Amazing. And have you got sort of siblings as well? People you see like siblings that grew up with Anne and Alan as well? Then
they've got their own children, and so obviously we interact as in I suppose as in relatives, brothers and sisters. I do have a biological sister up in London. We were first of all put into care together, but as some may know, in the care system children are quite separated often because people don't have the space and room for two children, especially children I suppose with who are potentially problematic. But now I have a relationship with my sister, and it's pretty good and healthy. I mean, she's gone on to have 9 children.
Wow.
So I think it affected her in a little bit of a different way. She had that nurturing mother instinct and decided just to have lots of babies.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story, which must be quite painful to look back on now as an adult.
Yeah, I would definitely say looking back on it it's different now as I've come to terms growing up. But I still look back and it's a pretty rubbish start to life for sure. Yeah,
no, of course. And you're a father yourself now?
I am a father, yes. I've got 3 children. I think going through the system as I did, it's not always made relationships go as smoothly as maybe they should, or for most people. I'm not, my brain works very differently. I was socially conditioned to be a certain way, and I think I lack certain things that relationships need to last a good duration. I'm quite happy and hoping to admit that. As a result, those mums sometimes knew where to hurt me, and I've had to fight several court battles to get my children back. And actually this Christmas was amazing for me because I actually managed to fight the court cases. I'm part of lots of groups, Dads for Justice and things like that, and I've managed to fight and win all of my children back. And this Christmas was the first time I had all of my children in one place.
Wow. And there's a lovely YouTube video you shared with me, which I'll make sure I put out on my socials after, hearing about William's journey, lowest off boy, through foster care and then getting into trouble with the police. So we're going to get on to all of his altruism and career success, but I think having the setting the scene with all this context is pretty powerful. And it's thank you very much, William, for being here to share your story with me. So you've finally been taken in by Anne and Alan, and you're still in trouble and probably not getting by, probably because of all that trauma you've had. So talk to me about then how this started becoming, ultimately leading you to ending up in prison. So that sort of area there. Yeah,
I think regardless to having a secured family and things going right for me, I was going through lots of mental health issues. I was borderline personality disorder, not that I knew it back then, ADHD. I had gone through so much that I don't think there was any way of me just conforming to the rules of life, and sadly I fell into wrong crowds. I was very easily led, and in the end started getting involved in more fighting, drugs, dishonest offences, anything from stealing cars to going to raves and being involved in that scene, just basically being I would say a thug, probably. I wasn't a particularly great person back then. If I didn't like something or someone, I was involved in fighting them. And was this quite a solo affair, or were you sort of part of a gang of people and gang of mates that were all involved, or? In terms of the fighting, I think I wanted to, because I was never respected as a child, I kind of wanted to show people that I needed to be respected, because I didn't want people to take advantage of me. And if people had fear of me, it was almost they liked me because, they were scared of me probably.
Yeah. Sort of notorious, rather.
Yeah, absolutely, for absolutely the wrong reasons. And obviously behind my back, I'm sure it was very different stories, and but yeah, there was, as I grew up, it become, I was more involved in more bigger syndicates, and getting involved, like I say, with raving and nicking cars to go to raves and selling drugs at raves. So it was quite of a long period of sustained crime, if you like, none of which of course I'm proud of, but it's a part of my journey. And then eventually my past caught up with me, and I ended up in front of the law, and I was given a large sentence it was originally given to me of 4 years.
Okay, and so this was you and as an adult there, so you're over 18 by this point, I assume?
I was.
Yeah, okay. And before that point, before you actually got put into prison, was there ever like a more sensible voice in your head sort of trying to talk you down and or were you just literally completely embroiled in that world?
Yeah, I think there was lots of people, probably family and people that were telling me or trying to help me at the time, but I certainly didn't listen. I was just out for me and out for this life of being respected and and having lots of friends. I never had that. My friends almost felt like my family in a way. It was almost like they were my people, and I just felt like I belonged somewhere. And
these were people that were doing exactly the same as what you were doing, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, they were doing what I'm doing, and they have their own reasons, and a lot of them, believe it or not, I'm still friends with. I don't actively go and party with them or go and have fun with them. We keep up on Facebook, and we drop messages, and some of them are doing really well as well. So it's not all bad. So
you told me off air that you went through a bit of a turning point when you were in prison. So can you talk to me a bit about that time?
Yeah. So in prison, I kept up with my the same theme really. So when I was in prison, I was fighting. I didn't always win all the fights. Some of them I come out quite badly, but I was always up for a row because I felt that I'd known that fighting was this way of being able to look after myself and get some respect. And but it got to a point where I was in solitary confinement, butt naked, and they stripped me down. That was their ways of controlling you and
humiliating you. Yeah.
I suppose it's humiliation. I think it's a way to strip you of your stripes. Sort of say this is, we're in control here, and you're going to do as we say. And
how long were you in solitary confinement for?
It was 2 weeks, and
24 hours a day.
Yeah, 24 hours a day. Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't any TV. It was a room and a mattress, and it wasn't particularly warm. And it was a bit humiliating because I was always a big chap. It wasn't a very nice situation, and people poking their heads through the hatch and things like that. But I think that the prison knew that they struggled to control me with TVs and all the hopes of exercise. I was just not bothered by any of that. And it was one day there was someone that came down from the education department and offered me a way out. But I don't know whether it was planned or not, but it was almost like they offered me a bit of responsibility. They asked me if I wanted a job, and a job in...
This is while you were in solitary confinement
at this point? While I was in solitary confinement. Yeah, because I'd done my time. It was how they were going to introduce me back to the wing and back to the people. But try and give me something to aspire or look forward to. I suppose I hadn't been really given that, and they offered me a position in the education department as just as a cleaner actually. Whilst I was on that education department, I was cleaning around people. I started helping people writing their CVs.
And had you done GCSEs or anything like that in school? You hadn't really attended school or shown up for much, no?
No, I attended school, but obviously with the Oakwood school stuff, I wasn't interested in schools, and because I'd moved around so often from schools and the bullying, I had no interest in learning or school. So I don't really understand where this intelligence side came from. But I think it was the desire to help people, and while they're writing the CVs, I was like, have you thought about writing this, or have you thought about writing that? And and eventually they sort of spotted me helping people to write their CVs for when they came out of prison, and they offered me unbelievably an orderly job, which is quite an enhanced position in the prison system. And so I'd gone through from solitary confinement to almost given this opportunity, and so
But you're still in prison at this time. It's not like you've not done your time and just stayed on. Okay, you're actually doing it.
No, it wasn't staying on, but they quickly saw that I had something about me that I could potentially work on, and they asked me if I wanted to do my GCSEs and A-levels, their equivalents, OCNs, and I said, well, I've got not much else to do at the moment. Okay. So,
and was there someone within the prison service or the education department that sort of was mentoring you or had your back during that time, do you think?
Yeah, it was a lady called Ruth. I've no idea if she's still out there. She worked at High Point FCCC training course, and she definitely had my back. I would say she saw probably the good in me, and it was her that kind of pushed me on to do better things, and it was actually her that got in touch with the university that I went on to attend.
That's Goldsmiths, yeah.
That's Goldsmiths. Wow. Yes.
So you did your GCSEs and your A-level equivalents in prison, and found that actually you were pretty smart and that you could get through these qualifications easily enough.
Yeah, really quickly, probably because there wasn't other things in the way for me to concentrate. I think when I set my mind to something, I was quite good at kind of... Did
you surprise people in there about how you succeeded with all that?
I certainly surprised myself.
Okay.
I suppose absolutely. I didn't know what Goldsmiths was, and this lady Ruth sort of said she thinks that I could really excel in education if I wanted to put my mind to it, and want to know what I was interested in. And I was interested in about at the time it was media and life, and I don't know. I think it was a spare of the moment. Oh, this is quite interesting.
What age were you at this point?
I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does Goldsmith have an arrangement with prisoners? Is this sort of a structured system of ex-convicts going to Goldsmiths, or was this just because they thought that was right for you? Or
no, so I think, and the way I kind of make people understand is when they build houses, they have to make 10% of those social housing. So I think when they have universities and things like that, they have to take a percentage of people from a very
disadvantaged backgrounds, like vulnerable people. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. And I think that's what got me the opportunity. I did get a day release from prison, because it was literally from prison straight to university, which was crazy. Yeah.
So you got a day release from prison to go to the interview for university?
I did.
Wow.
Yes.
How was that?
Yeah. Well, it was just, they do day releases for jobs and things like that when people are leaving prison. It's part of the system.
And that was after 2.5 years in prison? How long?
2.5 years.
Wow. Okay, so you hadn't left that prison in 2.5 years, or you hadn't left the prison system? But
I've not left the prison system. I'd gone through different and multiple prison services, but I had been at High Point for quite some time.
Okay. It's quite rare to have an articulate person who's gone through that. So I'm just interested then, from a general national point of view, what was it like being in prison? What was your experience of it? Everyone talks about the state of the prison service all the time, and it's a newsworthy subject, isn't it? What was your experience as somebody actually on the receiving end of that service?
Yeah, when I first got in there, I went in there as, as one person who I wasn't going to take any rubbish, or I thought I was a big fish. I was a little fish in a very, very big pond. I saw some quite horrendous things, people getting, badly hurt. And I kind of, that wasn't what I was about. I'd have a fight, but these fights weren't always a standard fight. There was weapons involved. There was...
Yeah, so it was less about proving oneself and more about hurting someone.
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't the way I thought a fight should go. But the opportunities in prison are there. If people want to take them, they are offered the opportunities.
So was it a rehabilitation for you? You saw it as rehabilitation for yourself, did you?
I didn't think I would, but it became that.
It was. Yeah. Because all those other distractions and life's distractions were removed from your situation.
Yeah, and because I actually used to, I know it sounds really odd, but I used to look at myself in the mirror. Sometimes I'd have a TV, that was sometimes my entertainment. I'd look in the mirror, and I was kind of, I think, looking in my soul a bit and just thinking, I just don't want to be here. I want something more. If I come out of here, I don't want to just go back to doing drugs. I just wanted to do something, but I never thought I would. And it was only when I had that opportunity given to me, I took it.
And did you think was it sort of just quite instinctive at the time, or was there a moment where you thought, okay, this is my way out of this life I found myself in?
I think at the time I was just trying to prove to everybody. My life's always been about proving to everybody that I'm not a bad person, because I've obviously grown up all my life feeling like I'm a bad person, being abandoned, being hurt, being left, not loved, so I've always felt like I always felt I was a bad person. It was almost like, this is the way I can show people I'm actually a nice guy, or I'm I'm not a waste of time. I was always told you'll never succeed. It's almost like everything that everyone said about me was almost like, this is the way to prove everybody that's not who I am.
So in those younger years, then you're desperately trying to prove to other people. At what point did you prove it to yourself, or have you proved it to yourself yet? Do you believe you are a good person now?
Of course, there are doubts. I have borderline personality disorder, so I always have. I live with it, but it's still a part of me. So I can be really down and dark sometimes, and what I mean by that is, I can feel like I don't love myself, I'm not good, that still is a part of who I am, but luckily I have methods and ways to pull myself out of that. And then it goes from the other side, I call it black and white, it's not living in the grey. It's very hard to get into the grey of life, the standard, the normalised life that people feel.
Sort of the general up and down of feeling good and feeling bad. It's sort of it's more polarised.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. And so I guess I suppose that is kind of where, because of the mental health that I endure, I think it's very difficult.
William, thank you so much so far for being so open with me about your formative years. I'm quite interested to know specifically how your attitude and outlook has changed when you think of the person you were pre-going to prison, and then the person you were when you came out, you went to university and you started to turn your life around. What's changed and what stayed the same about you?
So I do think in terms of how I think moving forward is very different to how I did back then. I guess through the monotonous therapy I've had over the years, and it's been very vast, and I've been very fortunate actually when I went into the corporate world, and I was very honest with the people, about my past. I had to be, of course, criminal records and things like that. And I was honest about my how I felt, and so I think with some of the really great therapy that was given to me because a lot of these corporate people saw a lot in me as well. I did very well for them. They saw that they wanted to help me, and they got me. So I think now, from having some of that therapy, I think things very differently. I think also, the more I seem to do and achieve, the further behind my past is. So I think as I've started to achieve more, have greater ambitions, and I don't mean, my ambitions before was, I remember being on the underground when I was younger, and I used to see people carrying a briefcase, and I used to think that was success. I don't know why. I know it's very odd to think that, but when I kind of got to that way of life, and I was going to work on the underground in London with a suit on, and it wasn't a briefcase, it was a folder, but I sort of felt this isn't success.
Kind of liking yourself a bit more though.
But I did, I absolutely did, but I guess I was looking at success in the wrong eyes. I thought it was about how much money you earn, and so I think the old me thought very differently about what life was like in the future, and now when I actually look back at what I could have done, or the advice I could have listened to, I think I would have done things very differently.
Okay.
So my life has changed, but because the old me thinks very differently. The new me thinks very differently from the old me.
So tell me about your career journey after graduating then. So that sort of moment, you got your folder. Tell me about the path you took.
Yeah, so after going to Goldsmiths, at the time I say not recognised how well Goldsmith was seen in the public eye or in business eye. It was a very
I take it your uni life was very different to your school life, and you kept your head down, did you, and your nose clean?
I still partied, and to say that everything stopped in terms of some of the activities that I partook in, I wouldn't be being honest with you. You know, there was still an element of the old life in me that still came out to play from time to time.
But you weren't beating everyone up anymore.
But I wasn't beating it. No, there was no more violence. Pretty much 20 years clear of violence. And offences really. So I haven't broken the law that I can think of right now that I'm willing to share at the moment. No, So yeah, I left university. I mean, you know, when I was there, you know, there's, you know, you got celebrities there, and there was even a member of the royal family there.
Princess Beatrice went there.
Princess Beatrice was there.
Was she there when you were there?
I believe she was. I didn't really come into contact with her. She wasn't like my best friend.
I suspect her people might have kept her away from your people, maybe.
I would definitely imagine they kept her well away from my people. Yes, but I did. You know, but there was always people that knew famous people. It was very surreal, to be fair, to go from the life that I lived and going to this really, world famous university. It was quite weird. And so obviously that was on my CV, and one of my first jobs was working for one of the BTLBs, which BT, and it was a very different. Well, I wanted to do something very different, but what I learned actually through my first job at BT was my past taught me some really good, I don't know if you call them lessons, but basically because I'd moved around from lots of foster homes and children's homes, what I was able to do very, very easily was build rapport.
Okay.
I was able to make people like me, subconsciously, I believe. I was able to build relationships really quickly because I had to learn that at school. And then when I came into doing it was a sales role, I quickly learned, I was really quickly enabled to build a positive rapport. I was able to make friends with some of these people that were potential clients.
You probably learned how to read people quite well because you sort of had to, didn't you?
It's a superpower. Yeah. Anyone that's been through what I do, I can almost walk in a room and feel
the energy.
Feel the energy. Yeah, know who I like, who I don't like. And I know that's very stereotypical, but you know, it can be from body gestures. You know, I'm always looking for people's eye contact. I'm looking for how they fold their arms, how they talk to me. You know, I'm because I need to know whether this is a good.
Yeah, I've learned if you're safe. Yeah,
exactly that. So when it comes, because I'm obviously now able to have this way of reading people, I'm then able to actually move that into sales, and I'm able to look for buying signals. Are they nodding their head? You know, because I'm always looking at this stuff anyway. You know, do they like me? Yes, they're nodding their head.
Sort of made it more conscious.
Absolutely, and as a result, I've become very, very successful in sales. You know, I was always in the top performers, if not the top performer, in most of the corporate world that I lived in, and as a result, I earned, I did earn a lot of money. I think, towards the end of my corporate career, I was on over £100,000 a year, which was a lot of money. You know, I was taxed heavily, of course, but it was, never thought that I would ever get that far. You know, moving from job to jobs, getting bigger and better positions and earning higher salaries. I was still chasing that salary package. That for me, I still kept thinking for a long time that was success. The more I earn, the better I am.
And what was that? Was that you chasing something or running away from your past? Or both?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Definitely both. It was almost like I want to get as far away from that person as I possibly can because it proves to people I'm not that same person anymore.
Yep.
And then a bit of me is like the further you get, the more you want to go. It's like, how far can I go with this? Like, almost to the point where I don't believe in sometimes sabotage it. It's like, and my way of sabotaging might just be I'm going to take a few days off, or it could be back then it could be I'd go and partake in drugs and going back to my old life.
So just sort of self-sabotaging stuff, which is probably the old you wanting to actually be recognised and seen rather than run away from, I guess.
Yeah, it was a constant battle of good times and bad times. Once I started going into the corporate world, having children, I was fighting constant court cases. I had so much pressure. One thing that is obviously in sales, certainly when you're doing high high value. I'm talking £2 million sales deals and things like that. We're talking high value sales deals. The pressure that's on me was never really used to that. My way of getting pressure was just go and get on it.
Go rob a car,
and go to a rave. As bad as that really is, that was my escapism. From that life. Just go and get out my head, and then nothing else matters. It just takes away the stress. So I had a lot going on through my professional life in working for corporate companies, because I was fighting court cases and still trying to prove people wrong. I had a few failed relationships and totally take responsibility for my parts in those. And I honestly take full responsibility for kind of the bad parts of my journey. Whilst I was conditioned to be that way, I think I recognised that I had choices, and unfortunately that's where I can probably hold my hands up and say I made the wrong choices, and I think that for me is probably my mistakes, but I try not to dwell on those too much, but that was kind of the turning point for me, going through the stuff that I did, the corporate world, and I needed to find a new purpose. I found my identity through prison, through mental health, through the jobs. I found out who I was, what I was, sometimes not always good. I realised in the corporate world I was quite Machiavellian. I was very, I would be quite manipulative in my approach to win deals, not in a, well, probably sometimes in not a great way, but that's sales. You've got to kind of sell the product, you've got to close the deal. You are as honest as you possibly can be. And when I say the lies in sales, it's this offer's only today. It's the white lies.
So I guess that's then perpetuating that thing of you're doing really well materially, but you're still not liking yourself that much, because if deep down you sort of know that you're manipulating someone, then that
absolutely. And actually, as an estate agent, that was when that was a very dark side to sales. I'm sorry for all the estate agents out there, because I know there's some really good ones, but unfortunately there's a lot of lies in estate agents work, because you have to bring the money up, you have to bring the money in, you have to close deals, and it's I won't go too much into that well, but yeah, you are right. Unfortunately it still was taking a toll on my mental health, because I knew right and wrong, and I just wasn't true to myself. I was just chasing money. I was chasing people who 1 minute were telling me how amazing I am, and then my figures weren't where they needed to be, telling me I need to pull my socks up or I'm out the door.
So it's like the same lesson, just different environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And still trying to prove to them I'm the best I can do, and I was doing that, but it took a lot of energy, because everything that I did I put so much more energy into, and when people say that, I know it's a very cliche, 110%, I was always that person. I'm going to make sure I put everything into this to get the outcome that I want, just to prove to people I'm good at what I'm doing.
No, that makes complete sense. Thank you for tuning in on the last day of 2024 here on Suffolk Sound. This is Jenna Rackley with my usual business show, but with a very special guest today. I'm talking to William Gilroy, who is a charity founder and community activist who's been attracting a lot of national attention lately with his barge restoration project in Lowestoft. And he joins me today to share his incredible journey. And if you haven't been tuned in for the last hour, I'd highly recommend listening again via the Suffolk Sound website, just to hear William's journey, where he's been incredibly honest. So thank you very much. I think this is the first time William shared his story in this much detail. So thank you very much for sharing it with me here on Suffolk Sound. So you've been through one hell of a life, which ultimately has now led you to moving back home to Lowestoft, really committing yourself as a father and taking on this incredible charity project. So can you tell me a bit about the project now and the barge?
Yeah, I can. Absolutely. So basically, I left my my last employer with a nice little tidy payoff. Gratitude payoff, if you like. I'd done a lot of work for them, and I had to come home and be a dad, and so I decided to take some time away from the corporate world. So with that money, I decided to buy a 100-year-old Dutch barge. It was purely by fluke. I went to look at a barge to potentially live on. I'd converted a lorry into a gin bar and a stage. I've sort of got involved in events, and I was looking for a different way of life, that way on the water, and I bumped into this barge up at Thorpe St Andrew in Norwich. Turned out I walked into this barge, it was amazing. It was well, I say it was amazing. It was just basically a big rust bucket. But when I went in, it was the history I then learned whilst I was looking at the barge. It was 100-year-old. It was part of the Lowestoft original fisheries. It was owned by Cadbury's. It was owned by Esso. It used to refuel Richard Branson's Atlantic Challenger 2. And actually, since the journey began, we've made obviously the press and things like that. We actually had a message and a note from Richard Branson himself. Wow. So Richard Branson sort of recognising what we were doing and wishing us all the best for the future. So it was nice to already get some people just believing in me without even knowing my story. To be fair, just this guy's come along. He's going to rescue a boat and he's going to get the community involved. So that was awesome. But so I got the barge. It was a bit of a red and black moment, getting it down the river to get it up on the slope for a survey. So I took a punt at $2,500 for this big bit of metal, and if it didn't go the way I'd hoped, it would have cost me a lot of money. So it cost about £6,500-7,000 to get it down the river to its new home, where we was going to get it surveyed and do the work. Obviously, with the money I spent buying it, it could have been a dud. Turns out it wasn't, subject to a lot of work. So we basically now got a lot of businesses locally involved. So big companies, sort of worldwide companies who come along and support the journey. And
is that with money or with corporate volunteering, or how is that?
Yeah, but both. So the idea was to turn this barge into first of all, it was a tea room with a museum, because we've got a lot of artefacts with the barge. It served in World War II. It's got an old landing craft World War II engine inside her. So it had a lot of history, and so it started off as it was a job way too big for just myself. It was I needed help, and so I put it out there, knowing my background. I was already looking to do like a man's class. Like I said, I had a vision of leaving the corporate world and set up a men's group. I wanted to start something to help people, and so this was when I saw the boat. I sort of thought, actually, this could be a really good project to kind of do and give back what I want to do and what I want to achieve. Get people involved, help people that are lonely, struggling with mental health, come down, do a bit of work on the barge, go home, feel better. It just snowballed completely. Like I said, I didn't expect to get the amount of support that I did. Local media, who are hopefully they're going to do another report on us in the new year, and basically the amount of people and the lives it's touched. There's people in our group. We're now up to about 30 volunteers who are involved in building the barge. And they're so committed. People barely miss a day. They are down there 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock in some cold, windy, wet weathers, and they just come down, and we believe it or not, we all greet each other, most of us with hugs, and we leave with hugs. It's one of those places where, and some of the people that have joined, some people have not left their house in a long time. Some people have been addicted to medication and things like that. Some people have just come down and just given up on life, and they've come down and they feel like they're part of a family now, and I'm really surprised that I've achieved that. But at the moment, it's very difficult for me to keep going with the journey, because at the moment, one of the biggest obstacles that we face with doing this barge up is it's not cheap. We had some really fantastic supporters, like I say, giving us materials. We've got I've put about £45,000 of my own money into the project to date. We have had a lot of materials provided to us from companies within the community. I think they add up to probably not far off £30,000. So we've got, we've had a lot of local businesses supporting us with materials. One of the biggest obstacles that we face is the mooring fees, is the fees, the electrics, everything else, that the running costs, as it were. And to be fair, now we're at the stage where we've done the hardest job. A lot of the beginning of the build was, hand grinding the entire outside and inside of this massive barge. Bear in mind, this is the 83 foot by 14 foot wide barge, and it was, sunk for quite quite some time before it was sort of rebirthed, and it's had a tough life. It's an old riveted boat, so we've literally gone through the painful stage of doing this barge up by hand. We've now hand painted it all. We've now got the materials for the new roof, because we're gonna have it's gonna be 2-floor operation. We've got architect plans in place who have come forward and done people have come forward and now on board. We've had most people that come to the barge might come in and just say, "I'll help you with something," and then they just stay.
Amazing. And are you open to that? If anyone listening wants to come and visit the barge and get involved, 100%. People can just show up. Where is it?
So we're more down at Excelsior Trust. We would only ask that people give us a shout first. Contact first, because obviously it's a working yard.
Sure.
Get in touch if anyone wants to come down.
And that's LinkedIn is the best way to reach you, is it?
Facebook. We're Facebook. With LinkedIn, you can contact me. I'm only just starting to learn the LinkedIn, even though, believe it or not, in my business world, I wasn't really.
No, it's quite a new thing, isn't it? So William Gilroy on LinkedIn, and then what's the Facebook page?
It's Barge Number 9, Barge Community and Preservation Project. So you can find us there, or we're Barge_NO_9 on Insta.
Okay.
The barge is only the beginning of the story, because we are a CIC charitable and non-profit charitable trust. So we've just taken on the idea is when this barge is an up and running tea room bar restaurant, we actually have and been given some space at the old hospital in Lowestoft, and we're actually now turning that into workshops. We're halfway or quarter of the way through now. We just had all the new floors in. We're just now painting it with the barge team, because sometimes there's not always work at the barge and the weather permitting. So we've got 2 sites that we're now converting.
Is the barge going to be in a fixed place, or will it be actually floating and going places?
It will be static. It will be static and clamped. We've got a couple of potential moorings, but again, nothing set in stone yet.
Okay.
I think as we move forward and people sort of see the dream come to life, we hope that we'll get a bit more support there.
And what is the dream? So let's jump forward now, 3 to 5 years. What's happening? What's William Gilroy doing, and what's happening with the barge?
Yep, so the barge hopefully is fully operational. It's doing, it'll be, seating up to 140 people.
Wow.
Plus we've got events. We'll do weddings, corporate events, and things like that. So we'll be doing lots of events there. But the idea is all the money that's raised from that barge will go to our new premises and what we do there. That's where we run workshops. So anything from personal growth, so mindfulness, yoga, meditation, breathing. So we'll run an art therapy. We'll be running those from our, it's called Anchor Point at the old hospital, so we'll be running workshops from there, and the money will go into there. And also we'll be running outreach from the old hospital, where we'll be doing everything from walk and talk litter picks right up to going to old people's homes or disabled people's homes and doing some jobs around their houses, a bit like the 60-minute makeover team will come in and we'll help them out. Or it could be low funded premises like schools or youth clubs where they don't have the funds to do the projects that they need to do. So we'll go in with some of the money in the team, because we've got a team of electricians, carpenters, all sorts of fantastic professionals, are fantastic, and we'll go in and do that. But the idea behind all of it is basically people come to these workshops monthly, and the idea is they come and do this work on themselves and in the community, and in return, once a month, we will basically pay from the profits of the barge to take these people, these disadvantaged families, these people with mental health. We're going to take them out and do some really cool activities, from water sports to rock climbing, mountain climbing, yearly big events, maybe skydiving, just basically showing them that if they do well on themselves and in the community, then look, here's a little reward for you. Let's go out and have some fun together as a team.
Amazing. Well, that sounds incredible. There's lots of analogies you've said there about your barge and your life. I have to say, I don't know if that's not been lost on you, about this barge that's been almost sunk and been sort of left alone and treated badly for many years, and you've come along and you're now hand sanding it and hand painting it to create something good from it. So,
do you know what? I've never looked at it like that. Maybe that's what attracted me to the barge.
I think so. If you listen back, I almost stopped you as you were talking, when you were just talking about that barge, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's literally like you're describing yourself as well. So
I've come to know the barge as
is that the thing? You save the barge and you save yourself. That's what we're all here for, really, isn't it?
Do you know what? I love that, and when I think about that, and I think it's I know that once the barge is complete, you know, we need £100,000 to finish this barge. I know that once we complete it, we'll be a self-sustainable charity helping thousands of people. And I think that when I said to you at the start about what I saw success being a paycheck, a position in employment, now, because of what I've been through, I see success is helping people and making people feel wanted, appreciated. Our motto is actually steering people to brighter futures, you know.
Lovely.
Because
very nice
for me.
And I've got to say, though, listening to your story and the depths of darkness you've been to, I think you've done it. So I know that you've got loads more you want to do, but I don't think you need to put a price tag or a finish point on that, because it sounds like you're already influencing and inspiring lots of people. So you've sort of done it and you've pulled yourself out of it already. So well done.
Thank you so much. No, I appreciate that a lot.
Well, I'd love to have you back on. Maybe this time next year you can come back on to next year's New Year's Eve show to tell us how far you've come with the barge and what's happening with it.
I would love that. If I was invited, I'd definitely love to come.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, William, for being part of the show here. It's been really inspiring hearing your story. Anybody who has missed any part of this interview, if you go to suffolksound.com and the Listen Again feature, and from 2:00 today you'll be able to stream this interview and also download it. So do please share and listen. And if you're in any position to financially help or help with your time to this incredible barge project up in Lowestoft, then do look up William Gilroy on LinkedIn or reach out to me, Jenna Ackley, and I'll make sure I put you in touch with him. So thanks again, William, and good luck for 2025
Thank
and
you
everything
everyone
with the
for
barge.
listening. Thank you.